Thanks for coming back, everybody. Another segment of Michigan Conservative Roundtable. Mac, my name's TJ. And in this one, we're going to talk about a group of seven. In 1960, a really good Western came out, and it was called The Magnificent Seven. And it starred Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, Horst Buchholz, Charles Bronson, my man, Robert Vaughn, Brad Dexter, and James Coburn. And that was an all-star cast, I'll tell you. But I'd like to introduce you to another group of seven, and they are not magnificent. Okay?
Yeah.
As most of you probably know by now, just the other week, the House sent the impeachment over to the Senate. I was watching the news, and I didn't know whether to laugh or want to throw up as I watched that group march to the Senate. Did you see that?
Yeah.
March?
It looked like they were carrying the Ark of the Covenant the way they were going over.
Well, yeah, that too. And for those who might not be aware, Sergeant at Arms Paul Irving and the House Clerk Cheryl Johnson led them. So there was 9 of them marching to the Senate. And when I watched them march to the Senate, you know what came to my mind? March of the Wooden Soldiers.
Ah.
March of the Wooden Soldiers. I looked at it and I said, what the heck? What we got here? March of the Wooden Soldiers? And in any event, Molly Hemingway, she wrote an article, and the title of it was Pornography for the Trump Deranged. But in any event, at this time, Mac and I were going to do a breakdown, and we're going to alternate. And I'll begin. I'll begin with Adam Schiff, alias or also known as Pencil Neck. Conspirator extraordinaire, I'll tell you, given the fact that he colluded with the whistleblower, I'll say. And I would be remiss not to mention that in Jeopardy, were you aware of the Jeopardy question?
Yes.
They did a Jeopardy question, and no one knew his name. I mean, anyone who knows anything about politics knows what Adam Schiff is, but you got these 3 people who are supposed to be intelligent out the wazoo, and none of them knew who Adam Schiff was. And that has become kind of the butt of jokes as far as who's he. He is from the 28th Congressional District in California, 10 terms. That's like 20 years.
Yes, 20 years.
10 terms. He's currently the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, one of the committees that was tasked to go after President Trump. One of his lifetime achievements is he kind of strong-armed the FAA to do a study and regulate helicopter noise. And was kind of instrumental in forcing the FAA to set up a noise complaint system regarding helicopter noise there in California, I guess. In 2012, he was on the investigative committee looking into Benghazi, and is quoted as saying that was a colossal waste of time. 4 people died in Benghazi, and Adam Schiff felt it was a colossal waste of time looking into that. March 22nd, 2012, he told Chuck Todd that he had more than circumstantial evidence now regarding the whole Russia collusion. And so he was one of the driving forces. Everyone knows about the President Trump phone call to Zelensky by now. And so that's what they're hanging their hat on, is the phone call when back in 2017 they had all this evidence on
about Russia collusion.
About
yeah.
Russia collusion. And if you have any thoughts on Adam Schiff, or you can move on to yours.
I think he's a despicable human being, is what I think of him.
Yeah.
I think he lies like most people breathe. He's a bad guy, and he really shouldn't be in the government.
Your turn.
All right, I'm going to start off with everyone's favorite, Jerry Nadler. And I don't want to be too hard on this guy. He is sick. He's 73 years old. But
he did lose a lot of weight.
He lost a lot of weight. He's not...
Like I need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe in honor of Jerry, we should have worn our belts up to about right here.
Yeah.
That would have been fitting. He's been around for a while. He's been in the House for 28 years now. He's on his 14th or 15th term. And he, with the new Congress, became, January 3rd, 2019, he became the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, which is a joke. He's from New York. He's a group of a slew of people who were in the State Assembly in New York before he became a representative in the House. He's been there since '92. He called for impeachment of George W. Bush several times. He's in favor of Surveillance Reform Compromise Bill, FISA Amendments Act of 2008, which is funny they should want to dabble in FISA since they abuse it so badly. Here's what he said. It abandons the Constitution's protection and insulate lawless behavior from legal scrutiny. Good Lord. I mean, that's all these people want to do is protect themselves from legal scrutiny. He's a big tax guy, all over Obamacare.
And they're all Democrats, by the way.
Yeah, they're all Democrats. Of course, that would make sense since they have the majority in the House. He's on immigration, and he's an open borders guy. No questions asked. Just come on in, to the tune of unlimited number of people. And I've said before, what are we going to do when we have 700 million people in this country and 450 million of them don't speak English and don't have a job and don't have a place to live? What are we going to do about that? He's anti-Israel. He was against moving the embassy to Jerusalem. He's all for smoking pot all day long. And when he was around for the impeachment of Bill Clinton, he described the process as a partisan railroad job. Can you believe that? Any comments on little Jerry?
No, you touched on plenty there, I would say. My next one's going to be Zoe Lofgren, and not a whole lot on her. She does have some things that stand out, however. 13th term. And you see a trend here, everyone? 10 terms, almost 15 terms, 13 terms. Oh, and Nadler and Zoe here were involved in previous impeachments also, going back to Clinton, even Nixon. Zoe Lofgren, 13th term. She's from the 19th District of California in 2016. On a different matter, there was a witness regarding the United States Commission on Civil Rights, and she clearly didn't like whoever was testifying. She referred to them as an ignorant bigot, and she was reprimanded, and that happened in May of 2016. She was a committee staffer in the Nixon impeachment inquiries. Nixon, if you remember, was on the verge of being impeached, they didn't actually go through the impeachment because the Senate went to President Nixon at the time and said, hey, we got the votes, just bow out. So President Nixon, he, under threat of impeachment, bowed out. She was a member of the Judicial Committee for the Clinton impeachment, and she has accused Trump of misuse of presidential powers. So in her mind, Donald Trump has to go. Next.
She have any examples of this presidential abuse of power?
To my knowledge, none was cited on her behalf.
All right, we'll move on to Jason Crow. He's a newcomer to the House. He is...
and a personal disappointment, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, it goes to something I'm going to mention here in a minute, and something I think you've said for a long time. He is a native Wisconsin, Badger type. He is a former Army Ranger. He served 3 tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thank you for your service, Congressman. He was a platoon leader in the 82nd Airborne Division and was awarded a Bronze Star. And he is a representative of the 6th District in Colorado, I believe. There's not a lot on him. He hasn't done much. He's only been in since just literally over a year. So he's not sponsored much or done much. He's an anti-gunner, which is disturbing. I don't understand how anybody who could fight for this country could not understand the right to defend ourselves.
As you know, I've been a big ex-military guy, and I guess in this particular situation, what a personal disappointment this guy's been to me.
Yeah, we could go down a laundry list of people who served in the military, some of them honorably, and just were not very good people. They were bad guys. Not everyone in the military is a good guy. Just understand that. I mean, I like to use this expression. Benedict Arnold was a hero until he wasn't.
That's correct.
Maybe John McCain could go into that same category.
Yeah.
But he's a special interest guy. Although he didn't take any money in his initial campaign, but since then he's a grab the money guy. A lot of these people go there to get rich, and looks like a pretty good gig.
All right, my turn. Val Demings from Florida, 10th Congressional District. She has a history in law enforcement. The theory is she was picked because she's a woman of color. So you know it's all about inclusion there. Even in impeachment, you have to be inclusive. Interesting past on her prior to coming to the House of Representatives. In 2007, she was a chief of police. Her husband, Jerry, he also has a history of law enforcement, and the word is they met while on patrol, and now they're married. You know, and I would sarcastically question perhaps they handcuff each other in moments of intimacies. I don't know. She has an F rating with the NRA. And yeah, they kind of figured because she had a background in law enforcement, a woman of color, made her a good choice for the impeachment gang.
Okay.
Next.
Hakeem Jeffries. He represents the diverse 8th Congressional District in New York. Another assemblyman from New York. He's known for having partnered with Republican conservative Doug Collins from Georgia on the legislation that would widely be used as the most meaningful for criminal justice reform. The President's First Step Act, in other words. He's been a big proponent of that. Mostly, the things he's attached himself to are basically fluff. He played a key role in the House passage of a Historic Music Modernization Act. I won't even get into what that nonsense is. In 2018, he authored the Keep America's Refugees, forgive me for stumbling over my tongue here, Keep Refugees Operational Act, which was going to go into taking in all these people from around the world. Anybody that claimed to be a refugee is spending a minimum of $2 billion doing it. So he's got a bunch of other fluff crap he's done. He's anti-cop. He's a Black Lives Matter type, to put it lightly. He thinks the police are always the problem, not the solution. That's not the behavior of the people they encounter. They don't have. They're just victims. He's done some civil rights stuff. He wants to end prison-based gerrymandering, where they count prisoners, even though these people if they're convicted felons, they can't vote. They count them in the as in the district to do gerrymandering with. And I didn't present that very well, but
Redistricting?
Redistricting, yeah. And he's got a quote here. As I was researching him on Twitter, he said the evidence is overwhelming. Trump corruptly solicited foreign interference in the 2020 election. The nonpartisan General Accountability Office has now concluded that the White House broke the law by withholding military aid from the Ukraine. Is there no bottom to the abuse of power? First off, his overwhelming evidence is what? Testimony of some clowns that he trotted out who have personal vendettas against the president, who none of them ever heard or saw him do anything. They just throw out, I feel, I think, I presume.
I heard from someone who heard from someone else.
Yeah, I heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy who knew a guy who heard it from a guy. That's their overwhelming evidence. The same kind of overwhelming evidence that Adam Schiff had, I suppose, about Russian collusion that went up in the...
Well, the trend I've seen with them is they all say they have overwhelming evidence, so much so that because they say it is, therefore it is overwhelming. Plus, everyone always likes to mention if you say a lie enough times, loud enough, eventually it does get believed.
Well,
so.
I'll tell you an example of that. In another tweet in that same research, he makes the comment, more than 100 million people have pre-existing conditions. That's 1 out of every 3 of us have a
Yeah.
Do I think that's probably exaggerated or a flat out lie? Yeah. So there's the kind of evidence that he goes by.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it on Mr.
All right.
Jeffries.
Last, and perhaps even least, Zoe Garcia, out of Texas, 29th District, covers, I guess, the majority of the eastern Houston side. She's an advocate of LGBT, and in the spirit of being inclusive, she is Latino, and being from Texas. I think what they did was I think they picked her thinking in terms of this year's election, almost said next year, this year's coming elections, and they're trying. I think they're trying to put Texas in play, and anything it takes, even if it means picking her to put her on the impeachment team. Why not? And the interesting thing about her is, and I cannot honestly tell you whether or not this is true. And I don't even know if it's still on YouTube. I probably should have looked. But I guess at one point in 2018, a video on YouTube came out basically involving her sexually harassing someone, wrongful termination. And I guess this allegedly occurred in 1995. So I don't know who put the YouTube video out.
Was it a male or a female? Do you remember?
You know what? I don't know, other than... her name got brought up on this matter. She has a background of being a judge, and I guess they kind of figured a Latino judge, every little bit helps when it comes to impeaching the President of the United States.
Right.
So, there you have the not-so-magnificent 7. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I believe this is being done to be a historical smear on President Trump and perhaps a Hail Mary at trying to affect the 2020 election. Any final thoughts?
That's clearly what they want to do. This isn't about. Why do it in the last what's potentially the last 11 months of his presidency? It's about how many times have we heard it said already? If he doesn't get impeached or removed from office, he's going to get reelected.
Al Green.
So that's really what it's about. And talk about the gall to talk about other countries or people interfering in our elections. What the hell is this?
Yeah. All right. I think we've ranted enough here. So we're going to close. As always, everyone, be safe, watch your 6, and don't tread on me.